This man has been squirting like crazy since he got off the plane. His whole body is like a high-pressure water gun, and the plane he was on was even weirder. The original 3-hour voyage. The plane was in the air for 10 years, but what's even more bizarre, all the passengers on the plane didn't notice anything unusual. They just thought it was a normal 3-hour flight, but the families of the passengers thought something had happened to them. But when the captain contacted the tower to request a landing, when the ground crew heard it was flight 828, that scared the hell out of the tower crew. After checking with the captain thousands of times, the tower authorized the plane to land, but it landed at an alternate airport in the middle of nowhere. When the passengers got off the plane, they were greeted not by their families but by a large number of police and journalists. The passengers were in a state of panic at the sight. They were discussing what was going on. At this point, a bald detective stepped forward and said, "Their plane took off in 2013, and the landing is now in the year 2023. The detective's statement made the crowd skeptical. They looked at each other in disbelief, because it's only been 3 hours for them. How can it be 10 years since they got off the plane? So in order to find out why, John detained the plane and all the people on board, and questioned the passengers one by one, but the answers were unanimous. Nothing special happened on the plane. There was just a strong turbulence on the way. The cabin was dark, the fuselage was shaking, but it was back to normal in no time. They even checked everything on the plane, but nothing was found. Detectives had to release the passengers and reunite them with their families. Although the people on the plane had only been on the plane for 3 hours, but the families had waited 10 years, and many people and things have long since changed in those 10 years. His 7-year-old daughter had become a beautiful girl. The gap between her twin siblings had widened. Lisa saw her much older boyfriend again, but when she saw the ring on his finger, he married her best friend. She didn't know what to do with all this. The only good news was her nephew who had leukemia. He only had 6 months to live. After 10 years of technological advances, there are now new treatment options that may be able to cure him. The team is still examining the plane. They're trying to find out what happened. How can a plane fly for 10 years without any change in its passengers? Lisa was sitting on the bus on her way home. Suddenly a strange voice came into her head. She immediately yelled at the driver to stop the bus. Then a boy appeared in front of the bus. If it wasn't for Lisa, the child would have been hit, but Lisa couldn't figure out what was going on. The next day she was running through a yard when the voice came back to her head. Lisa saw it was just a dog's. She left without doing anything. During the night's rest, the voice in her head sounded again. She came to the yard where she had passed during the day, and then her brother arrived in his car. Jack was on the same flight as Lisa. He had the same voice in his head. They let the dog out privately, but the next day the police were called. They were caught on camera letting the dog out. The officer reprimanded Lisa and then brought her along to return the dog. And at that moment, Lisa had another voice in her head. She couldn't resist the voice. She looked around the yard. Her eyes landed on a locked door. She grabbed a tool and smashed the lock against the police's advice. Inside were the 2 girls who had disappeared so long ago. When the owner of the dog saw what had happened, he grabbed an iron bar and hit the police. But the police officers were able to control the dog owner easily, successfully solved the kidnapping case. The police officer gave the credit to Lisa. Lisa was told to come back to work tomorrow, but it wasn't long before Lisa got another call in her head. This time it wasn't just the 2 of them. All the people on the flight felt the guidance. They arrived at the airport in unison. But then flight 828 exploded for no apparent reason. The director once again investigated the 20 people present, but all of them answered the same question. They all received guidance to come and see the plane, but this happened right after they arrived. Surveillance also showed that they did not go near the plane, so they had to let them go. The officer in charge warned that this was a matter of national security. They're not allowed to talk about it to anyone.